Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, and today we're going to explore how you can get exposure in the media. And we brought in an expert. His name is Mr. Yitzi Weiner, and Yitzi is the founder and chief editor for Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine has got a publication. They have over 30 million readers of their magazine. And we're going to talk about marketing, branding. We're going to talk about why exposure makes sense, how you get exposure, some of the steps that you can take to do it either yourself or to have others do it for you, and putting the whole package together so that you take action upon getting yourself more into the public square, because it is so much more important than ever before, because that trust factor that comes along with that earned media. And we're going to talk about that in depth. So without further ado, let's go talk to Yitzi right now. Yitzi, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, and thanks so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure and honor, Doug.
I'm so happy we're doing this interview together because you're a master at getting exposure. Well, people getting exposure, you getting them exposure for them, right? So exposure in the terms of press, if you will. And so many people don't understand the world of PR or understand the world of what does a press person actually do? What are they looking for, right? And I have these conversations with people all the time. They're like, I want to get published. I want to have this. I want to have that. But they have no idea on how, or and sometimes even why they want to. Well, why don't you tell people what you do so we can set the frame for this call?
Sure. So again, thank you for the opportunity, Doug. So I am the editor-in-chief of Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine is the largest medium publication. And what we do is we interview leaders in 5 verticals: entertainment, business, technology, social impact, and wellness. So we do in-depth interviews, and we have about 320 different topics. So basically, we have produced a lot of content doing interviews. That's one. We've done over 100,000 interviews. One of our business models, the one way we make money, is we have a program called the Thought Leader Incubator. And basically what it does is it helps leaders, people who are already SMEs, the subject matter experts. It shows them, trains them how they can become a journalist, a media correspondent themselves. And we found that being a media correspondent is like a press pass to the world. Basically, people clear their deck to talk to you. So basically, we train these leaders how to be a journalist in their field of expertise. And we guide them how they can interview other leaders and then create a whole series of interviews and articles around that area of expertise. And then turn that into a book or a series of books, and then turn that into a podcast series where they're interviewing, prominent, high-profile, famous names. So what it does is, number one, it gives you a lot of exposure. Number two, through the halo effect, it also, when they talk to famous people, it kind of gives them that credibility, that believability, because the person's talking to a well-known, world-famous person. And then also, it almost acts like lead generation in the sense that you could talk directly to the person that you need to talk to. So talk to your ideal client profile. Like you could talk directly to the CEO instead of dealing with the secretary. Basically, it's a way to make relationships, high-level relationships, face-to-face, one-on-one.
So making high-level relationships one-on-one are that's the creme de la creme, so to speak, right? That's what everybody wants to do. They want to get to somebody, have that conversation, and then eventually have it lead to something else, usually business-wise. So that part makes total sense to me. Now, people getting exposure, because you were in the press prior to doing this, right?
Yeah, I still am in the press. That haven't changed. If you're referring to being a publicist, I did have an incarnation as a publicist.
Okay, so people want to get exposure, and this is why people write books, write articles, things like that. Why do you think the world is so fascinated with people who are getting published?
Excellent question. So as you know, marketing in general, the rubric of marketing has 2 main parts. There's earned media and paid media. So paid media is what you're familiar with, let's say Facebook ads or a billboard or some advertising in a magazine or online. Paid media has a great advantage in the sense that you have full control over what's said, control of the picture generally, and you can guarantee that it'll be there. If I pay a magazine for space for an ad, they'll put it there. So that's paid media. But the drawback, though, is that people know that an ad is paid for, so it doesn't have credibility. So it's not believable. Whatever they know, whatever's in there, you take it with a grain of salt because they're selling something. However, if the same magazine, in their article section, they're writing an article about a business, how this business did this thing, this doing these great things, or how it's distinct, how it's disruptive. So then the readers, they trust it more because for the magazine to do an article about it, they have to vet it. So in the United States, it's illegal to write about somebody unless it's disclosed. So there's no payment involved there. And so therefore, an article is more trusted. So that's what's called earned media. Earned media basically would mean you could hire a publicist, and the publicist will pitch to editors of publications. And then if they find it fits within their beats or their media calendar, then they'll accept it. So that has an advantage that's more credible, much more credible, but it has a drawback though. You don't have control over the words and you don't have control. It's not guaranteed. So you could pay a publicist, $5,000 a month and you may get zero because no editors are interested in it. So the answer to your question is people want to be published because it seems like a platform where it's third parties giving the person credibility. It's not them talking about themselves, it's other people talking about them, and that's more trusted. And therefore, that's not only good at advertising, good marketing, it's also good branding. The difference between branding and marketing, marketing is saying what you do. Branding is saying why you should be believed. What's your story? Why people should trust you. So being published in a prominent magazine is a form of branding in the sense that it tells people why they should be trusted.
I have a whole questions based on what you just said. So if I understand, there's paid media and earned media. Paid media could be, I pay for something, I get published. I don't know, advertorial, would that be paid media, right? Something like that. Mm-hmm. So I actually know it's going to get placed and I'm paying for that placement. I pay for a billboard, it goes up, right? So people see it. Earned media is a media that is sought out because of my expertise or my ability to communicate something.
Or if you've done like a great thing, you've earned an award, you've done a good, you've done something distinguishable. So even if you didn't pitch it, if you've done something that's special, they'll write about you.
That makes sense. So is it fair to say that with paid media, it's less trusting because people know that I've invested my money into it and it's more like an ad?
Right, exactly.
And then
you know that people can say whatever they want.
Okay, that makes sense because I have full control over the editorial portion of that, I guess, within reason, I suppose. And so earned media, though, that is something, as you said, it's earned, right? So, but the entity itself, your company, whatever, you're putting some type of trust out there because you're putting in the funds to actually get that media out there. So it's the difference between who's making the payment, really, when it comes down to one factor. And the other is, I don't have to have something really interesting to say to get into paid media so much. I have to have something of value that's interesting to say to get into earned media. Is that correct?
It's an amazing distinction. Yeah, that's a very good distinction.
So you can tell me you don't want to get into this, but I have to ask this question now. So I see things out there like councils, like, I don't know if I can name the name, right? Sure, Blank council. And then you join that group, you pay, and they'll actually publish you. And then there's the same company who has high credibility, who publishes, and everyone knows Blank Counsel is a paid thing, so it has less credibility than the large named entity, just publishing it directly. Right. So that's the difference, right? It's like difference for, can I pay to get on television stations? I didn't even know this.
You definitely could, yeah.
Oh, I could.
Yeah, usually what they'll couch it, the way they'll phrase it is, they'll say, this program has been sponsored by Sales Strategies, has been in partnership with. That's just a way to say that they paid for it. So often morning shows like on a local television, you could pay attention to people that could they'll set you up with that. The term of art is P2P. P2P is pay to play.
So there's pay to play media. This is
I mean, they have to disclose it. That's it by law, FEC law, whatever. FCC rather.
FCC.
Yeah, so you're required to disclose it, but they disclose it in subtle ways.
So when I'm seeing stuff on television and it's all this little tiny fine print down the bottom or whatever, that's potentially paid media?
So I would say almost always, if either television or media is writing about a company, there was some payment involved in the following sense. Either the company paid a publicist and the publicist pitched it to the editors. So in that case, they don't pay the media directly, but they pay their publicist, and the publicist will pitch it to the editors. Or it's a pay-to-play model where they actually paid the media company themselves to be part of a program. Yeah, unless it's like part of like an overall, breaking news story. Whenever they feature business, it's very often.
This is what we see like in political ads paid by the whatever,
Yeah, I mean that for sure. Yeah, that's disclosed. Yeah, but that's for sure paid because that's an advertisement. But even like when it's not on the advertising section, it's in the editorial part. People are there because they paid a publicist who pitched them to be there.
Interesting. Okay, you also said something that I thought was key: branding and marketing. Branding was, I wrote it down, I don't know if I got it right. Why you should be believed, that's brand. Right. And marketing was what? Do you remember?
I would say advertising is saying what you do. Branding is saying why you should be believed, why people should trust you.
This is why people say a brand is what people are thinking about you when you're not there.
That's great.
So I have a question, and I don't know if you've been asked this ever before, Yitzi, but here's my theory. People like exposure and people trust people who get exposure. And the reason behind that is because in the beginning of time, when somebody put a book together, it was a really big deal. And so when we look back in time, historically, we see these old books that were published, but people became kind of famous from publishing those books. And I think that legacy of old publication and being famous is kind of carried over even into today's market. Am I on base? Am I off base?
100%. I mean, I think it's lost a bit of its veneer since, olden times, but I would say nowadays a book is almost like a fancy business card in the sense that it's advertising to the world of what you do and showing that you have expertise, showing that you have something to say. Yeah, often authors don't make books because they want to sell a million copies. Very, very few books do that, but they do it because they want to be known as, the root of the word authority is author. But you become an authority by being an author. It's one way to show that you're an expert.
You know what? I never got that. So thank you. Okay. So marketing in the term of direct response, or marketing in the term of, so branding's different then. So marketing is just really more, what you do, you're putting it out there to get either a response. And could branding be a subset of marketing, or do I have it confused?
Yeah. I think marketing is really an overarching term. I mean, marketing really just means efforts to bring your product or service to the market. But the advertising and branding, advertising would be, saying what you do, and then branding would be describing, why you should be trusted. I know what you do, but why should I trust you?
So on television, when they have a commercial that goes on, I don't know, one of the perfume commercials or whatever, and we all look at it and go, what does this have to do with perfume? Like, it's just like nothing. Or Calvin Klein or something, put something out. I'm not saying Calvin Klein ads are bad. That is a disclosure that I'm putting out front right now, so I don't get sued. They put out this ad, and it's, I don't know, a guy and a gal, and they're walking through a forest or something. It has nothing that I know what to do with a perfume scent or a moisturizer or something like that. But they put it out and they keep exposing us to it over and over and over again. Is that branding or is that advertising?
I think branding really encompasses every single aspect of the company. Branding could be their customer service and how they answer the phone, and could include the way the logo looks and the colors that they use. That's because those are all these are telling a story of telling the story of what the company represents, what they stand for, and how trusted are they. So that, for example, nowadays you'll see a lot of companies doing social impact things. They'll do things to help the environment, to help homeless or whatever. And part of why they do that is because they want to be seen as caring about people, being people that are conscience driven. They're trying to convey the impression that they're ethical people and people that could be trusted, as opposed to people that are, let's say, the opposite. Think of a business that's really sleazy and underhanded. Usually they're not the ones who are giving, helping people and giving out to charity.
Right. That makes sense. We're speaking with Mr. Yitzi Weiner. He is the editor-in-chief and the founder of Authority magazine. And we're talking about exposure, branding, marketing, right? So Yitzi, from what I understand now, exposure and getting exposure, and the reason that we're having this conversation in such depth is a lot of companies don't look at the branding side of their business or the exposure side of the business. They're kind of out there trying to just get clients. And I've always looked at it as two different ways. There's outbound prospecting, and then there's inbound prospecting. And this branding component of it is what I would deem as inbound prospecting. prospecting. And I think it has equal value in many capacities to the outbound. In your experience, is getting the branding in the inbound, does that bring in more leads and bring in more qualified clients?
It's an excellent question. Well, I can tell you from my own experience, we have a business and thank God we're doing okay, doing good. Almost every single one of our clients came through just because of the work. We don't advertise, just seeing the work that we do, then eventually they reach out to me. So like ultimately they all reach out because they appreciated what we stand for and they wanted to learn more. I think the distinction between outbound and inbound is, well, outbound can be very effective. It's less trustworthy for the fact that people say, if you're so good, why didn't I hear about you? Why are you reaching out to me? I should be reaching out to you. If you're so good, why are you calling me for my business? You should be full of business and I should reach out to you. So the point is that, of course, you're the expert in sales and, sales is a whole art in itself. So this is trying to address that question. The reason why we're trusted, the reason why you should listen to our salespeople is because we're a very trusted brand and here's why we're trusted, etc. So yes, the answer is yes, 100%. And it's another facet of sales.
Well, I think for me, you hit this nail on the head, so to speak, because here's what I know. Especially since the shift has happened through pandemic, selling is different than it was 4 or 5 years ago. It's definitely different. People now research quickly information online, sometimes offline, right? They might have a magazine, like an offline publication. And, like I just did, I looked up an insurance company because they were in this magazine. I read an article on them and thinking of switching over all my business insurance. So I'm reaching out to them. But I do know CEOs of companies and buyers in companies now, they're doing the majority of their research before they even talk to a sales team. So being in Authority Magazine, being out in that public square now seems to give so much more credence to people who now are no longer kind of an unknown entity, where before a salesperson would come in and they would be kind of an unknown entity unless they work for, say, IBM or something, right? So what are the steps that one takes now to go and get themselves in this public eye, knowing that it's no longer kind of voluntary if they want to continue to keep, being out there and having that trusted brand?
Great question. So sure, the easiest, simplest way would be to hire a publicist. Publicists, they can range between $2,000 to $5,000 a month. It's not cheap. And again, this is not what I do. But publicists, basically, what you're paying them is paying for their relationships. They have relationships with editors, and then they'll pitch your story to a publication. Any good publicist anyone who's good, who has experience, who you've researched, will be able to get you in some kind of publication. It may not be the different tiers, may not be tier one, and it's snowball. So you start out with a lower one, then you go to a medium one, then eventually go to a higher one. So that's the easiest way, that's the simplest way. Number two, you could also try it yourself. You could research, how do you write a pitch to an editor, and you can find their emails. It's not impossible. And then you just send them an email, send an editor. I had this business, I love you, this is why we're unique. I'd love for you to consider a story about us. I would say maybe 1 in 100 will respond, depending on what it is. But, if it's just get the numbers, eventually someone will respond. So you can do that yourself. It's just a little more laborious. Another simple way, there's a thing called a lot of services like Harrow or Quoted, or there are a bunch of others. But basically what they do is they're like a nexus between the press and between individuals. And so basically the press will say, we're working on ABC stories, these stories this week. We'd love to hear these experts, these people who have this experience, and then people can respond and say, I have this experience, and then they'll respond. So yeah, those are other things. 30 Magazine, doesn't cost anything, of course, to be featured. You could send a pitch to us, and we're pretty accommodating. We don't accept everybody, but very accommodating. And we have so many different storylines that we try to make place for almost everyone. So those are a few ways to do it.
I love that shameless promotion at the end there. That was awesome.
Nothing to be ashamed about.
No, not at all. That was awesome. And Authority Magazine, how did you come about starting Authority Magazine? Because I love the story because I know it, but I want others to know it too.
Sure. I was a writer for Huffington Post. And then Arianna Huffington.
The Huffington Post you were a writer for? Okay.
And then Arianna Huffington, she sold it. I think it was to Verizon Media. She sold Huffington Post, and she started a new thing called Thrive Global. So when she started her new platform, Thrive Global, she invited me to write for her new platform, Thrive Global. And when she first started it, it was on the Medium platform, Medium ecosystem. And that's when I became familiar with Medium, and I became connected with the principals of Medium, the people that are behind the scenes. And I was, very enamored by the platform. But more precisely, more importantly, because I was writing for a prominent publication already, I was getting pitches from publicists that represented famous people. So people like Shaquille O'Neal and Paris Hilton and famous people. So I realized if I had those relationships with publicists are like a gold mine, connect to the most famous, best interviewees. So I realized if I could start my own publication, I would be starting not from ground zero, I could start from ground 100 because I already had connections to prominent people. So I've been very blessed. That's how it started. Started out very small. It started small, but it just slowly but surely built up. Now, thank God, we've done 100,000 interviews now.
And how many years has it been?
We started end of 2017, beginning of 2018.
And you have about what, 30 million readers on a regular basis at this point?
Yeah, according to Decision, we have 30 million unique viewers per month.
So you being the founder and CEO of your own company, I always love this question, and sometimes CEOs want to slap me when I ask this, but has it been all easy, just a cakewalk, Yitzi, from the beginning? And
sure. I do it in my sleep. I heard a great line, actually from a friend of yours, a person that you recommended me to, Alan Weiss.
Yeah.
He said people dream, they leave their boss, they hate their boss, and then they go work for themselves. But then they realize that their new boss is a relentless boss. He never gives them any free time. The point is that, when you work for yourself, it's very difficult to carve out time for vacation and taking care of yourself. So it sure wasn't easy. Sure, it has ups and downs, but you have the benefit of being of that flexibility. You could come in when you want, leave when you want. You have the ability to direct. You are like, instead of just having a fate, you have a destiny. Fate is like what you're dealt with. You can kind of craft your destiny when you're a business owner. Instead of you don't have to have a fate, you have a destiny.
That's pretty cool. So when times get tough, and I know you enough to know times in any business, they get tough. How do you get through that tough time? What has gotten you through?
Me personally, it's my wife. My wife, she's always very encouraging. She gets me going. Yeah, being an entrepreneur has highs and lows. Has high highs and low lows. So yes, for me, it's my wife. If I wasn't married, if I wasn't by myself, I don't think I could have done it. I mean, who knows? But it's really, for me personally, it's my wife gives me that strength. And I realize that business is important, but it's not the most important. The most important thing is your family, people that love you, everyone's healthy. So putting that into perspective.
Yeah, so thank you for answering that, because every CEO, almost without fail, has always said something to this effect. When times get tough, I get outside of myself and I look at what's important to me in my life. And, you have your wife, obviously. You have your lovely children, a whole flock of them, all 7, right? But all CEOs have said the same, very similar thing to me. It's like, I look outside to see what's important, and then that motivates me on how to keep going through this. And as you said, I'm writing my own destiny, but I might be writing the destiny of my children, my wife, and myself. So do you think it's, you gave the answer, so I'm going to ask, do you think it's really important for us to, as owners of companies, to stay focused on another mission versus just the goal of the company? Or do you think just the goal of the company is enough?
Yes, I think ultimately human beings, we're hardwired for purpose. We need to have purpose. We need to be doing something that lasts, that's meaningful, that's substantial. We could build a great company, but if we don't feel like it has purpose, we're not going to be happy. So I think building the company should be a means to an end. Your company, so that you could support your family, support your community, support your employees, make a difference in the world. That's means to an end. Ultimately, the end is supporting people that you care about, making a difference. I think that's what will lead to having a purpose. Having purpose that's important and significant will make us happy. But without that, we're going to be dissatisfied.
That's profound. And so it really is. And I'm going to challenge all our listeners out there to really, if you just pass that, come back to that and replay it over and over again. And the reason why is because we all get lost at times. The chaos of running a company, whatever happens, right? I mean, the government changes a regulation, this happens, that happens, whatever. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have at least once a month, something like this happen in the companies that we have. So, but if we go back to the purpose and understand that the purpose of the business is to do this, then it's not about ourselves any longer. It's about the mission of actually accomplishing that purpose. And that's why I said it's profound, because a lot of business owners don't think that way, Yitzi, because they're in the middle of the fray all the time, and they don't step back and say, okay, what is the purpose? Why am I doing this? I started this thing out to maybe get freedom from my job, and now, as you just alluded, that Alan said, I have a worse boss than I had before because I'm the boss, right? That type of thing. And so we can get lost in that, and we can say, okay, we give up, we're not moving forward anymore, or we're just going day to day in the trudgery of what we feel, hey, we're making a living. But if we focus it on purpose, that has us different questions. So
100%.
thank you for sharing that. Yitzi, how do people get a hold of you? They want to be in Authority Magazine. They want to be, they want to know more. How do they do so?
Sure, yes. You could just Google Authority Magazine. It will come up. I'll give you my email. It's already public information. My email is editor@authoritymag.co. I have all social media platforms. I'm in that world, but I don't engage that much in social media. Personally, for me, I'm a private, quiet person. But yes, that's my email. And you could reach out to me on any of the platforms. I'll respond on Facebook, on Twitter. Just type in Yitzi Weiner. In many cases, even just type in Yitzi. It'll come up. It's tough.
So that's editor, editor @authoritymag.co. Thank you. authoritymag.co. I stand corrected. And, or Yitzi Weiner at WEINER, folks, for that. And we'll put everything in the show notes for you as well. So Yitzi, thanks so much for being here today on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I really appreciate you coming here and sharing your knowledge with the world, because folks, as we were talking about, go out there and get into the public square, get some exposure for you and your company. If you want to progress forward in the years to come, it's no longer should I, it's a must. So thanks again for being here, Yitzi.
It was a pleasure, Doug. It's always good talking to you.
Okay, so there has been a shift in selling to pretty much anybody, but certainly to CEOs of companies. Did you know that about 70% of the time, companies have actually done research on the actual person that's going to be presenting to them? In other words, the sales channel. They actually do in-depth research now, not just on the company, but you as the seller. They know more about you than you might know about you by the time you get there. Why do they do this? Well, they are making decisions now by taking down and unqualifying or disqualifying someone so that they don't even talk with them. In other words, they might be looking at 10 or 12 different entities. They'll look at all of this information just like they would do in a job hunt. If they were hiring somebody, look at the resumes, say, nope, this one doesn't fit. Nope, this one doesn't fit. This one does. This one does. Nope, this one, yes, that. And they'll break them down into the ones that they want to talk with. That's how you get into the company if they're doing it in their process. So why not be better positioned? See, the more that you're out there in that public square, the more exposure you have that is, positive, and the more that people, they type in who you are, and man, it comes up on the, first 5 pages, and they can just see over and over and over and over who you are, and that you have more credibility over someone else. That positions you as a trusted entity. And this is why exposure is so much more valuable than it used to be in years past. And the cool thing is you can do this for lower cost than you ever could do in the past. So, if you feel it's something you want to do on your own, I can tell you I have done it on my own and it does work, but it is a process, especially when we started a company out, we didn't have the funds to hire a publicist. And so we did it ourselves, but you'd be surprised. It takes a few months to get it going, but when it starts rolling, you can get interview after interview, and you can get into different mediums such as podcasts and magazines. I've been in Forbes. I've gotten myself on high-rated podcasts. What you're looking for is to use other people's credibility. And, with websites, that's called domain authority. The higher the domain authority, the more credible. And so if you think about it, if you're hanging out with credible people, you by nature become more credible. And that's how this works. And it really should be a facet of your business today, far more than it ever had to be, because information is so easy for the potential buyer to get versus, 30, 40 years ago. All right. So if you love this episode with Yitzi, please go up and give it a 5-star review. Share it with other people who could be helped as well. If you yourself or someone you know is an expert, or you have a subject matter that you want to just have an expert on, like Yitzi, just reach out to us at youmatter, YOUMATTER, at ceosalesstrategies.com. We will answer any inquiry and we will let you know, does this make it for us? And if so, then we will invite you on if you're the expert, or your friend, or we'll find an expert like we did with Yitzi, bring them in and respond to your inquiry. Now, if you want to get yourself from point A to point B, or point B, or point A to B to C to D. In other words, you want to learn how to be a top 1% earner through selling. Whether you have the experience or don't have the experience, and you want to get to that next level, we are rolling out a university this year, as well as a software, which is an automated prospecting, follow-up, meaningful, relevant communication system that leads to more conversions for you and allows you to manage your relationships proactively versus reactively. If you're interested in either one of those, please reach out to me directly to get onto our mailing list, and we'll let you know when both of those are rolling out. My email is doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. As always, go out and sell something, sell a lot of it, sell it profitably, and play win-win. That means they're looking to either gain an opportunity in their life or solve a problem, and you can help them win at either one of those. They win, you win, because they pay you for that privilege. But go out and play win-win with everybody, because, hey, look, you know what? Life is too short. Why not play win-win? Win-lose, no fun. Win-win, long-term relationships. Think of it that way. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast, saying to you, to your success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success.